want to ask you something that's fairly simple, but then it isn't. Who are you when the job title's gone, when the business card's gone, when everything that you used to know has gone and you've been doing it for years, but yet the people around you still expect you to be the same person that you used to be? What happens? Not who you were, not who you're becoming, but the person who you are right now, if you like, in the gap in between the two. I've been thinking about this question for quite a long time, and I think it's the most important question when it comes to reinvention. Much more important than the business plan, much more important than the income strategy, and much more important than the content calendar. Because if you don't know the answer to the question, if you haven't done the work to find out who you are, then you may spend the next few years building something that looks fairly successful on the outside, but really is quite hollow on the inside. And this episode is all about trying to find that answer. People talk about reinvention as if the best place to do it is somewhere new. A fresh start, a different city, a blank canvas with no memory of who you were before. And I understand the appeal, I genuinely do. When you go somewhere new, nobody knows you. Nobody has a fixed version of you in their head. And that means you can be anyone. But for me, here's the truth about reinvention that not many people say out loud. Most of us don't get to do it somewhere anonymous. Most of us do it right here, in the familiar, in the place where the dry cleaner has pressed our suits for a decade. Where the neighbours know what we used to do for a living. Where every familiar face carries a version of us we're trying to move past. And that, the reinvention that happens in full view of the life you're living, is actually the harder thing to do. And I think it's also the most honest one. Because it means you can't hide in the anonymity of somewhere new. You have to actually become the thing you're claiming to be, here, in front of people who remember who you are. And that specificity, that accountability to the familiar, is what makes it all the more real. Here's what I think a job title actually does to your sense of self, because I think most people underestimate it until it's gone. To me, a job title is like a container. It tells the world and it tells you what you are, what you're responsible for, what decisions you're allowed to make, and how much you're worth from a company's perspective. It's a very efficient piece of social shorthand, if you will. When you meet someone and tell them your title, they know immediately where to place you, and you know where to place yourself. The problem is that over time, the container becomes the identity. You stop being a person who happens to hold a particular role, and you start being that role. The title isn't something you do, it's something you are. And when the title disappears, when redundancy bites, or the pivot happens, or you decide that enough is enough, you're left with a question that the container was quietly answering on your behalf for years and years. My question is, who are you without it? Most people find this question utterly terrifying, myself included, and I want to reframe that terror. The fact the question is so hard to answer doesn't mean there's nothing there. I think it means the container was doing a lot of the heavy lifting that you forgot to check what was underneath it. Underneath it. Now there's the thing, and I promise you, underneath it is something much, much more interesting and much more significant and more genuinely yours than the job title ever was. Finding it is the work of the 51st chapter, and this is the very reason why I've put it together. And it starts with understanding the difference between reinvention and replacement. Here's a distinction that I want to draw really clearly, because my understanding is that many people do get this consistently wrong, and it costs them years. Okay, right, so replacement in my view is finding another container, a new job title, a new employer, a new version of the old chapter with a different logo on the business card. Replacement is faster, familiar, and it solves the immediate problem of income and identity. But I don't think it truly answers the question. It just kicks it down the road a bit. Reinvention, on the other hand, is something totally different, at polar opposites. It's not finding a new container, it's figuring out what was inside the old one that was actually yours, and building something new around it. Not the role, the real deal beneath the role. Think of it a bit like a tightrope. On one side of the tightrope, you're holding on too tight to who you were. You spend energy trying to replace the old chapter in a new setting. The same psychology, different space. The title changes, but the identity doesn't move an inch. On the other hand, you let go of everything. You decide reinvention means starting from zero. You disown the experience, the expertise, the 25 or 30 years of pattern recognition that makes you genuinely valuable, because you've confused the container with its contents. The tightrope is then clearly the middle, and the way you walk it, I've come to believe, is with 3 words. I want to give you something concrete to work with, because the idea behind this series, and I've developed it in this way, is that I don't just want to talk about the high-level ideas or the theory. For me, I've got to have something practical to hang it on, and I want to give you as much practical content as I can. So if there are things that you think, or if there are questions that you want to ask, please do feel free, drop them into the comments below. Because again, it's all about the practice. How can you take the theory and apply it? I've done this exercise many times over the years in different guises, and obviously more recently when I was made redundant. I went outside to do it, I worked from a hotel to do this, I also did it at my kitchen table, and obviously I did this inside Tight Spot Studios. I call it the 3-word ID exercise, and it's deceptively simple, which means there may be a tendency to rush it, but I will encourage you not to rush this. But the interesting thing is, you may want to come back to it after 6 months or maybe a year to see if it's still the same or whether it's changed. If you've been in sales, you may have done something like colors, or you may want to work out what your MBTI, your Myers-Briggs type indicator is. I've worked mine out, I've got 4 letters, you may have the same. Or you may have read the book, What Color Is My Parachute? But it's all gearing towards not what you are being paid for or what you have been paid for, but more, what do you actually do? So mine are storyteller, builder, and connector. My company and my brand, True Norf, are all an expression of all 3. The consultancy business that I've been growing are an expression of all 3. The work that I've done in supply chain, storytelling, taking complex and complicated worlds and pulling a human story out of them, have all been an expression of all 3, without me even having to name it. I'd be lying if I said that I became somebody new after my redundancy. The fact is that I didn't. I became more Norf, if you will. The job that I was in was selecting certain parts of me and suppressing other parts. And then when the job ended, it gave an opportunity for all of me to come back out and focus it on my business, which I would say is a really good thing. I also don't think it's a coincidence that I'm recording this on a bench that says prepare to double. Because I think when it comes to reinvention, particularly after a redundancy, maybe it's your 2nd or 3rd redundancy, a lot of your reinvention starts with a shift, a paradigm shift in mindset. And if there's anything that I want you to take away from this video, it's very much about, as you're moving forwards, are you prepared to double? Are you prepared to reinvest in your skill set, in your talents, in understanding who you really are, to then pay that forwards? I know certainly for me, that's where I started. And that's what I want to keep on doing. I want to come back to something that I said at the start of this episode, and it's about reinventing, and reinventing in the familiar, doing it in full view of the people that know you and knew the old version of you. There's something that I think that most reinvention content gets wrong, in my humble opinion. It makes the whole thing look like a departure, like you have to leave your old job, the old industry that you were in, and leave your old city and your old life in order to find somewhere new to reinvent. But I think the most powerful reinventions that I've seen, and certainly that happened in my life of late, happen right now in the real circumstance, in the familiar surroundings. Not in spite of them, but because of them. And I think that when you reinvent in the familiar, in the town you've always been in, the network you've always been connected with, you have to be really real about it. Because you can't transform in front of a new audience because they have no frame of reference. I think you have to do the very thing of transformation in front of the people that know the difference, who can see the before and the after. And that accountability, that daily accountability of becoming something new in a place that knows you in front of people that also know you very well, is probably the most powerful and honest form of reinvention that I think there is.
It's also the most difficult, yet it's also the most worthwhile.
For me, I don't think you need to go somewhere new to find out who you are or what your purpose is now that you've been made redundant and you're looking forward to doing something in the next chapter. I think you just need to go somewhere that's honest, to find your 3 words and then come back to them in 6 months or a year's time. This episode has been great to make. I've really enjoyed making this one, and I hope you will find something that is of value of it. If you have, please do let me know in the comments. I would love to start and continue a conversation with you. But in the next episode in this series, episode 7, I'm going to be having some real conversations with real people where naysayers said it's far too late. And these are people that have tried the front door and they found out that the window was open instead. And I'm really looking forward to sharing that episode with you. So thank you so much for being part of this journey. I hope that everything in this series has been valuable to you. Please do let me know in the comments. But that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in episode 7.